Let me welcome Sheriff Bill Beam to our interviews this evening. We did, by the way, in case anyone watching says you didn't have the other candidates, we invited all of the candidates for sheriff, just as we did all of the candidates for the Board of Education and all of the candidates for the county commission seats that are up for election this year. Some chose not to participate, others had other things happening. We do know, for example, that one of the sheriff's candidates working for another law enforcement agency said she had to work this evening. So that's where she is, we assume, and so she's not here. And the other candidate had the opportunity and apparently chose not to join us this evening. So this is not a commercial for Bill Beam, but we will ask you some questions, Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
And I think probably the most important question, let's just start with that one. Why should the people of Lincoln County re-elect you as their sheriff?
I worked at the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office for a long time. I started part-time in '75, went full-time in '78. I've worked for 5 different sheriffs, and I've learned a great deal from all of them. A sheriff with experience is a valuable tool. I've learned a lot of things from being on the county commission. I think it's made me better in this office as the sheriff's office. Also, by being sheriff for 4 years, it's really helped me a great deal. I've experienced things during my term that no other sheriff that I've ever worked for has had to deal with before. We've had governor's orders, we've had COVID's orders, we've had courthouses shut down, we've had our jail basically shut down to a degree, and we've had to deal with things that nobody else had to deal with before us. And by going through that, I think it's an experience that I'm better prepared for, just in case we have another wave of the COVID or whatever, but also in some other things with court orders and that type things that the judges have issued about courthouses and courtrooms and so forth, and there's been some give and take with that, but we've also know things that we can issue orders on and things we cannot issue orders on, and so I think it helps us all the way around. I feel like that I've worked really hard to make sure that I took care of my officers, that I've been able to do things that we hadn't done before, as far as trying to make sure that my officers are along with the public. The public's the number one priority, but my officers have to be my priority. If I don't stand up for them, nobody else is going to. And I want to make sure that they have the equipment that they need to do this job. This is a tough job, and it's a tough time in history. That we've got things like we've got rapid response to active shooters that we've never had to deal with earlier in my career. We've got many other things that we need the equipment for, and I think that I've brought a lot of those to the tables this year. I want to be elected on what I've done. I've been in law enforcement a long time, but I'm running for office on what I've done and what I've attained as a sheriff in the last 4 years. And I feel like that's if I've done a credible job, then fine. I run on my record. I run on the things that I've done, and I hope to get reelected on that and be able to continue some of those things. For the people in the county and for my officers and for law enforcement in general.
One of the things that you mentioned in the East Lincoln Betterment Association Meet the Candidates evening was some of the things that you have changed as far as equipment goes since you've been sheriff. Things like body cameras and tasers, new tasers, and obviously the new boat on Lake Norman. Could you tell us a bit about those?
Yes, one of the campaign promises I had and last year, I say last year, but the last election, one of the things that we all discussed in our forums and so forth, I mean, it was very lively discussion with all the other candidates. I'm disappointed that I'm the only one that's here tonight, but we talked a lot about the school resource officers and the active shooters in the schools, and we've had an excellent program through the years that we have kept developing. And one of the things that I promised to do was to make sure that not only does the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office train with the teachers in the schools, but also with all the ambulance attendants, also with all the volunteer fire departments, the North Carolina Highway Patrol, the Lincoln City Police, just about virtually every one of their officers went through that school with the rapid deployment training with us, as well as the Highway Patrol. And I sent off to Mecklenburg County to the sheriff's office and any other law enforcement agency. If someone was living in Lincoln County and they had a job as a full-time law enforcement officer, I wanted them to come and go through this training with us, because maybe they're taking their children to school, and maybe they just happen to be at the school campus or close by when an active shooter happens, and so they could immediately know how we were going to respond and be able to respond with us and be an asset. And so we did that together. The fire department's ready to work well. The fire department's job in all this, of course, is not to actually go into schools to help us take down the shooter, but it's to make sure that we keep the roadways clear. We know that when Columbine first happened back years ago, so many of the students that were involved in that shooting bled to death because they did not immediately get medical treatment. So in our quick response, first thing we want to do is officers go in and take down the shooter immediately, but as we come across people that have been shot and need services, that we get somebody into them quickly. My officers all carry tourniquets now, and that is to stop the bleeding, not only themselves, but also on the victim. And so to get the bleeding stopped, to get in there quickly and get them the medical needs taken care of immediately, and we have to keep the roads open so the ambulances can get in and the ambulances can get back out. And the volunteer fire departments, that's their duties, and they would handle that greatly for us. And we studied on all that. We practiced it in a real exercise. And we did all these officers from other agencies that we went in together in different teams. Might be one deputy, one highway patrolman, one city officer. And so they knew exactly how that we were going to respond. And I think it worked out really well. So that was one of the first things I did. The other one was to talk about the 4th District in Denver. Everybody knows that we've got huge growth taking place in the eastern Lincoln County. And I've talked about adding a totally new district, which we're going to talk about splitting the Charlie district, which is in the far east. That district in half, have a north end and a south end, and instead of having 5 officers working there all the time as it was when I first came into office, we would have 10. Now today I've got 7 officers that are assigned to the Charlie district. When we do these districts and we add the 4th district, this is not only just going to be better for the people in the east end of the county, it's going to be better for everybody in Lincoln County. Because what we'll do is, because we're going to take Charlie district, split it in half, we're also going to come a little further towards town than we do right now. So that means the Baker district that serves around the city of Lincoln will become smaller. In turn, they're going to pick up the old 155 highway right now, which is part of the Adam district, which is on the far west end of the county. And so the Adam district will lose that part of the county, the Baker district will pick it up, and so even the people that live on the far west of the county, the 5 officers that serve them is going to have a smaller response area than they did before we started on this. So it's really going to help everybody all the way across the county. And it takes time, because that's a lot of people. It takes 23 people to make a new district. You've got 16 patrol officers, you've got 4 sergeants, you've got 3 detectives, 1 lieutenant, and 1 clerk. And when we get completely done with all that, it's still going to take several years. I would say that if I'm fortunate enough to be reelected, that by the end of that 4-year term, that our Charlie district and our Denver district will be totally manned and that we'll have 10 officers working all the time. And that's going to make a huge difference for us. It keeps us ahead of that curve as far as the growth, and we'll be able to continue to do the citizens of Lincoln County a good job.
Let's go back to something you were talking about earlier there. The training, of course, for a potential active shooter is important. Thank God we haven't had that kind of situation.
Yes, sir.
But we did have a situation a little bit similar involving East Lincoln High School and a young man who made some threats there during the graduation period a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, it was a situation where a young man had made some comments. And of course, things have a tendency in schools and other places to become larger and gain their own life, and we had to make sure that we dealt with facts. My officers went to the student's house, got all the facts, and we felt like that we went ahead with the graduation at that time at East Lincoln. They changed it from the outside to the inside as a security level, but I had a number of officers there. Our school resource officers were very involved, and we were able to do that and pull that one off safely because of the training that we've had, and because we have our school resource officers that do a really good job, and they're integrated in with these schools and are able to help us to get to the bottom of any matter. And Richard Calhoun is one of the things that I did at the beginning of my term as a first sergeant. I didn't have a special supervisor over the school resource officers. At one time, back years ago, when we didn't have many school resource officers, we put them under the district lieutenant in that district, because to keep them still in with all the rest of the crime that's going on. But the school resource officer job is such a specialized job that one of the things I did, and by talking to other sheriffs and so forth, and I found out some things about how they were doing things. And so I promoted a young man that was an investigator for us, Richard Calhoun. He made him a first sergeant. He is the immediate supervisor over all the school resource officers. Whenever there's any kind of an event, just like the ones that we talked about, he automatically goes to that school. He has the authority to pull in additional resources from our patrol officers or detectives or whoever else that we need to make sure we got the manpower to take care of that school, make sure it stays safe. He can move even school resource officers from one place to another. He's totally in with our school resource officers. They also run our Navy basically in the summertime when school's out, and he does a fantastic job, and I really appreciate him. He has been a total asset for us at Lincoln County Sheriff's Office.
I had told our readers that we would ask questions that they submitted, and one of the questions that was submitted, just recently, your deputies arrested a couple of people on drug charges after a traffic stop.
Yes.
And this occurred as these people were leaving an area where it was a suspected drug house.
Yes.
And so the reader said, why have we not raided that drug house? Why have we not been there?
Well, we did after this occurred. In other words, we share information with our drug narcotics. I've got one drug agent that's with the DEA, and I have one that's assigned to Homeland Security. So we know a lot about the federal things that's going on, but at times that we've got people that are known to my patrol officers, and these guys are pretty sharp, and this young lady, as a matter of fact, do really well. They know people that are involved in the drug trades, and we make sure we share all that information with our officers. We want everybody to have intelligence about it. And so she had a house that she saw that some activity was going on. She double-checked with our agents to make sure we didn't have undercover officers in there at this time, so we didn't want to put them in any kind of peril. She cleared that, and so she watched this house probably over more than 30 minutes, and she saw people going from inside the house to back to the car, back and forth, and through her observations. And she developed a very strong opinion about what she thought was taking place, and she watched them leave. She got in behind them. She followed them for a period of time to make sure she got her back up and so forth situation. We wanted to make sure our officers were in a safe place. And she conducted the traffic stop. The city of Lincoln was contacted. They had their drug dog on that was working at that time. They came out and it was able to hit on this car, and we found a huge amount of drugs, 461 ounces of methamphetamine, not ounces, excuse me, that's grams, I'm sorry. 128 grams is a trafficking amount. They had thousands of dollars on them. Even one young man, when we took him to jail, had cash that was taped to his leg. And so they were getting ready to wheel and deal. Now, we hit the house after we did that, and we do searches on a periodic basis, and we've got continual investigations going on all the time. But it was great police work from a heck of an officer that I'm very proud of, and I'm proud of a lot of our people. I allow them to work. I encourage them to work. All I've got to do sometimes is get out of their way and give them the opportunity, and that's where I've got to support them and give them what they need to do this job. And when they do that and they make these drug arrests, I don't have to call in a drug agent to come in and draw these charges. They draw their own felony charges. They can draw search warrants. These officers are trained and perform extremely well.
One of the problems that another sheriff's office in a nearby county has had, they've had 2 deputies off duty who have been convicted. No, I know one's been convicted, the other one's been charged with driving while impaired. Obviously, from time to time, you get a bad egg.
Absolutely.
How do you handle that?
Termination. In a situation like that, it's easy. We've terminated a number of officers over the years at the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office that got DWIs. We're not going to wait till you have your court date. Everybody that works for me knows that if you're caught drunk driving and you blow more than the amount that you're supposed to, and that you're going to be charged. And so we've had some people call us and say, my stuff's in my car, that they just caught for driving while impaired, and we don't have a threshold for that. We're not going to We're not gonna do that. So I can understand, there, but with the grace of God go I. I'm glad it wasn't somebody in our agency, and of course, even though the people that work for us know that, you're gonna have it happen from time to time. I've had to terminate officers during my term as sheriff. Of course, I was chief deputy for a long time, and termination is, I want people to learn from their mistakes. Now, if they make a mistake, they own up to their mistake, and it's something that they can learn from, then you're gonna have a better officer if they can learn from mistakes. And we've got to give people the opportunity to do that. Now, when they make bad decisions, then we're going to have to terminate. And you've got to do that for the credibility of your law enforcement agency. There are always people can say you did this, and this. It's like that I've got on the walls now when we're a community policing agency, and back in the 90s, I was a community policing instructor. I was taught through the Department of Justice, in the Cops More, Cops Fast area when we had a lot of grants. I've taught from Newport News, Virginia to Myrtle Beach, and we were consumed with community policing. It's a philosophy. It's a way that you do business. It's not a program. But in our community policing skills that we teach, we just try to make sure that our officers know. I wrote a great mission statement, because that's one thing you're supposed to do. You write a mission statement, and ours was 2 or 3 paragraphs, and I wrote it myself, and it said who we were, what we were, and exactly how we did things. But when I became sheriff, I couldn't remember what it said. So if I couldn't remember what it said, then it was way too lengthy. So I've changed that to a great deal. Now hanging up in my office and all over our department in any of the other 2 substations, the Adam District, Charlie District, and the New Denver District, it'll be as well, is our mission statement. Number 1, and I got the first 3 of these from Harvin Krause, and said, son, your job's pretty easy. The number 1 job you have to do is protect life. The number 2 job is protect property. Number 3 is keep the peace. Well, I added 2 more. The 4th one is tell the truth. Now that's to me, that's to the public, and that's to each other. You tell the truth, and number 5, you do the right thing. Now, Reverend Lowry and I had a lot of discussion about doing the right thing. It's the right thing for some person, and some person may be 2 totally opposite things. And so I found out with Reverend Lowry how we solved that problem. I asked one more question, and that is it righteous? We just solved the problem. So if we do the right thing and it's righteous, then we know which direction we need to go. And this is just direction for these officers. We have to emphasize this. I work with a lot of young people, and I'm going to tell you what, I've really got a newfound faith in the younger generation. I've got people that are moral, they're smart, they want to serve, they want to do the right thing, they want to be professional, and they want to treat people right. And they do us a very honorable job. You're always going to have times when somebody messes up, does things they absolutely should not do, and we terminate. And we try not to hesitate when we do that.
One of the other candidates in the East Lincoln Betterment Association Meet the Candidates conversations suggested that the sheriff's office ought to do more traffic enforcement. Can you comment?
I do have a comment. Everybody's got to have priorities. If I had somebody that just wanted to work on trash violations, they could spend 12 hours working on trash violations. But at the end of the day, have they met our priorities, our protect life, property, keep the peace? And so, no. So if I go and do the North Carolina Highway Patrol job for them and write a bunch of misdemeanors, then who's going to do the felonies? Who's going to do the drug cases? Who's going to do the cuttings, the shootings, the stealings? And which we have a lot of, and we've got excellent officers to do those. But our priorities have to be on the things that a sheriff's office does, and not so much on traffic. Now, do we have radars? Yes, I've got 5 units. I've got people that certify the radars. We are on the Governor's Highway Safety Program. We participate in their programs, the Click It and Ticket, and we help the North Carolina Highway Patrol sometimes at DWI stops that they have when they set up to do these things. And we try to work, my guys with radars, we try to work in neighborhoods that the North Carolina Highway Patrol is not going to go into, villages of Denver. There's a lot of issues with them because they've never turned their streets over to the state of North Carolina, so it's not state streets. A stop sign violation is not a state law violation because they've never turned their streets over. So we try to use radar in some of these places to make sure that we can keep those streets as safe as possible. and when we've got specific problems, and we do work those. We're not going to work out on Highway 16 that much, very little. If somebody's running by one of my officers that's running 80 miles an hour or 100, yeah, he's going to get a ticket and probably go to jail. But that is not our priority. If I put a radar in every car, I am telling them this is your number one priority. Now, I've also had discussion about the possibility that our officers could work property damage only accidents, maybe on Highway 16, because of the time that it takes the North Carolina Highway Patrol to get from the west end of the county. From the time there's an accident until they get there, it may be an hour, hour and a half. My officers might be able to put an exchange slip form that would take them 10 or 15 minutes and let the people go on about their business. Their insurance companies will have to battle out who was at fault. I'm not talking about giving issuing citation to somebody that's at fault at the wreck, but we exchange the form so they got each other's information. Their insurance companies can settle out. If there's somebody injured, we're not going to work it. But just a little fender bender, and it's on the state highway, we have the authority to investigate that, to do the exchange forms, and let them get on about their business and do it quickly. Now, that's a service that we could render to our citizens. That's not talking about sitting up here and running radar all day. We cannot do that. If we do that, we're not going to be able to do our job.
Connected with that, we've heard the comment from several people that why should I have to wait 2 hours for the highway patrol to show up when a deputy is already there?
Right. And that's one of the things I've looked at. In the Sheriff's Association meetings, I've got sheriffs that are highway patrolmen that are retired troopers, and other sheriffs, and some of them in our larger metropolitan counties, which our east end is becoming, do that, and they work these actions. They do not go out here and do a lot of traffic enforcement, but they do that as a service to their citizens so that they can get it cleared up and get the roadway cleared up, and it's better for everybody.
The county commissioners have been very generous in terms of supplying what you have asked for.
Yes.
In terms of, well, they've already approved, at least tentatively, it could change, of course, depending on the economy.
Right.
They've already approved the expansion of the C district to a C and D.
Right.
And the officers necessary come next January to implement that. They, of course, also provided funds for the equipment that you've already mentioned, and you didn't exactly mention it here, but you did down at the Elba Meet the Candidates Night, the new boat, which is basically a Coast Guard quality boat on Lake Norman. What, if anything, do you expect down the road, because you're running for another 4 years?
Yes.
What do you expect in the next 4 years that is likely to come up that the county commissioners will need to fund?
Well, you know, I support my officers, and there's a lot of things that we need. One of the things that we need really badly right now that we don't have now, they've been great to us. We got new SWAT equipment. We've law enforcement officers' vest is certified by the manufacturer, warranted by the manufacturer for 5 years. After 5 years, it's no longer warranted by the manufacturer. Well, if I give an officer that's 6 years old a vest, I'm telling him, and he's going to say, well, this is not a warranty. Now, would it probably stop a bullet? It probably would, but it's not warranted by the manufacturer. And so they put a time step on these things. So we have to keep, and right now, the county commission's been fantastic to me. We've got it on a cycle that we can change those vests out and make sure that every one of my officers has a vest, and they're wearing them now, and that they're within our warranty. And also they took care of we got new SWAT firearms. We had some MP5s that were fully automatic, a fully automatic weapon. Nowadays the training is a lot different. That they're not very accurate. MP5s, anything that's fully automatic is not very accurate sometimes. You can spray over a great area. So everything we have now is semi-automatics, and these weapons are all great and fantastic. But I don't have any night vision for my SWAT teams. That's going to cost around $120,000, so that's another price ticket. It's one of the things that we need badly. Experience makes all of us better. We had a 13-hour standoff, if you remember, just a few months ago. We called another SWAT team in to assist us because my officers had been actually on point, waiting on a possible shooting situation for hours upon hours, and I had to get them some relief, get them out of there. Our body cameras were also running out of power and needed to be switched out, and so I know that we needed a few more body cams, but the body cams have been a really fantastic idea. After the incident up north, the George Floyd subject, I had a group of citizens that came to the office and spoke with me about things that they thought that we ought to be doing, that we needed to look at, and at that time I had already put a mandate on our use of force that we banned chokeholds, and we also made officers accountable that if you're doing something that you ought not be doing, they have the requirement to either stop that immediately and make sure that they report it. And so we've added that to our policy and procedure, but we also, it made me really take a second look at body cams. It's an expensive item. It's $1.7 million. That also gives each one of our officers a taser, which is a less than lethal option, and those have been fantastic for us. They're the latest technology. They really work extremely well, and the body cams have shown that my officers, a lot of my officers have got some chewings from some of their supervisors sometimes about things that they may or may not have done. But now when we've got the body cams, and we can go back and look at that body cams, I found out that my officers treat people with dignity and respect. And although I've had some people say, oh, no, this officer he threatened to do this, and he threatened to do this, and treated me horribly, and there was 10 officers there. And no, ma'am, there was 2. We've got all this on video. You want to take a look at it. And you'd be surprised. It's upheld my officers. And I wish we'd done it before, but it's a pricey item. But this is 2022, and it's one of the things we needed badly. And the county commission has stood tall for me. I really appreciate this board that we have now, and I hope we continue to be able to work so closely with emergency services. And they've done great jobs for the ambulance services, you know, the EMS and everybody else, because all emergency services, and that's one thing I tried to do too when I came in the door, to make sure that we all work together. I mean, we're small in numbers, and so do I care if another deputy sheriff helps me out if I'm in bad trouble, or if a fireman stops out here and helps me out? That fireman being there, I'll be glad to have him, and I'll be glad at the same time to help him. So we work hard to make sure that we help them, and all of us work together closely.
Sheriff, thank you for showing up and talking with us today. And if anybody has questions that we didn't ask that they would like to ask you.
Half the people in the county's got one of my cards. If not, if you ever run into me, hand me a card, because this has got my cell phone number on it. If it rings at 2 o'clock in the morning, I answer it. 704-473-7368. You got an issue that you want to talk to me about, I'll be glad to come see you. You can come to my office. Most times I like to talk in face more than I do on the phone, to a great deal, but we can handle a lot of things on the phone, as we do every day. I've probably got 30 more minutes worth of stuff here we could talk about, but I'm passionate about the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office. I don't have to do this, but I want to do this. I want to do this job because I'm afraid that if I don't, who else is going to? And I want to make sure that our officers are taken care of, the people in this county is taken care of, that somebody will take the time to spend the time that we've got to do. By being in law enforcement as long as I've been, I know what the job requires, and I'm going to do my absolute best to fulfill those duties.